We're going to get started with our opening to our Collaborative Stewardship Forum open house today. And to begin with, we're going to start off with a welcome song by our very own Chris Thomas from the Shuli program.
I've had the good fortune to have been part of the origins of what's now the South Timuc Stewardship Alliance. 2010 is when it all really started to roll along with the original negotiations of the Strategic Engagement Agreement, but formally being implemented in 2012 onwards, and the extension of all of that to include the Collaborative Stewardship Forum in about 2018. And I've been the co-chair on behalf of the South Timuc Stewardship Alliance since the beginning. And I'm very happy to have been able to participate in all those years and really understand it very deeply from where it began, where it is now. And I think that perspective helps give guidance to newer people coming on board. The foundation of working through and in the context or under the principle of let Samat, right? That being of one mind, of one team, which is one of the governing principles of our Collaborative Stewardship Forum group. Us, BC, community members all working together as one team. All of us involved, Qualitum or otherwise, understanding more what we're doing in the context of a Stalo worldview, factor of two-way training, two-eyed seeing, and working together under a Stalo framework is something that's deepening and advancing.
I think it's progressed quite well. I think that there's a lot of impatience and frustration shown, from our people and from our representatives, but it's a given. It's been there for a long time, but it's moving along quite well in actually looking to work with government.
I was welcomed to the Collaborative Stewardship Forum at the beginning. So I worked with the Strategic Engagement Agreement and the People of the River Referrals Office. And I've been very fortunate to be involved in a number of the different working groups, including the Guardians program. And interesting fact, the last gathering of the Collaborative Stewardship Forum was where we engaged with the very first South Timuc Guardian, Ray Douglas, who visited the Guardians program booth and had a great conversation with us and became the very first South Timuc Guardian shortly after, which is pretty cool and shows the value of this community event.
So I've got to be a part of everything from water quality monitoring to air quality to checking wildlife cameras, working with species at risk, fish habitat restoration. So it's kind of expanded based on the objectives that we get as South Timuc Guardians.
From a Guardian point of view, it's really cool to see the different initiatives when it comes to species at risk, wildlife and South Timuc, and just our water and land and air. And I think it's really cool to see how people come together from all over the world just to come work here at Stalo.
Partnerships, especially when you're coming together with two different worldviews and braiding Western science with Indigenous knowledge, take time and effort. But when you look at the number of projects we have, how many accomplishments we've been able to deliver on, but also maybe more importantly, how we're working together, it's very gratifying to see.
It's been neat to follow along with CSF and how it's morphed over the years and to witness change and improvement. The province's involvement has been good, but it's also changed over the years, and we've seen some really strong involvement and engagement from Indigenous communities and Indigenous leaders, really steering the direction of the Collaborative Stewardship Forum in good ways.
One of the big things I would say is if they instill some of our Snawayath or our traditional knowledge, the teachings of our people in the areas of resource management, and kind of turn it a little bit and talk not just about resource management, but about the non-exploitation of all our relations.
There's a whole bunch, everything's connected. And we treat the collaborative stewardship like that. Everything is connected, from the frontline workers to the dignitaries that sit at these tables. And we discuss what's in the best interest of not only the people, but the land.
So, the framework that we put forward that became the foundation for the Collaborative Stewardship Forum is, I would say, quite successful in that it was achievable and sustainable and actually has grown. So we started with, I think, 6 themes, and we now have 8 themes, having added education and climate change.
The most important thing is understanding what's happening in the Saltmach, right? And understanding how climate is affecting the different parts of the ecosystem, the water, the land, the plants and animals, and also the people, right? And most importantly, the communities.
We have experienced all sorts of examples of those climate change impacts, from the giant floods we had in 2021 and the enormous amounts of rain that created the Sumas Lake coming back for the time that it did, that severely impacted a lot of the waterways and really had major impacts on a lot of the infrastructure and roadways around here. It's pretty hard to comprehend how to approach it in a lot of ways, but including climate change and adaptation and as a focus for part of what we do in Collaborative Stewardship Forum does give us a way to approach this tremendously huge issue.
There's less rain, there's more variance in different flood issues and drought issues. And so by focusing on, for our work, the water quality program and watching what's happening to water very closely, and then working with the nations to restore and kind of mitigate the impacts, that's going to have a huge effect locally on climate change and benefit the fish and also the communities.
We're now seeing climate change related events compound off of each other. And what I mean by that is, atmospheric river events and wildfires building off of each other and making the significance of those events even worse. CSF is doing such important work in gathering that baseline data to track change over time, but also thinking about providing capacity for people who are stewards of the land, knowledge holders, tapping into elders and youth, and looking at different perspectives. It's important to think about gathering all of those perspectives through the Collaborative Stewardship Forum, seeking guidance through shared decision making and shared inputs and two-eyed seeing, and using the learnings to help us to combat climate change.
I think it's really an exciting time to be able to learn about what projects are evolving and how that can be used towards combating and mitigating, adapting to climate change and all the pressures, the additional pressures of visitors in the area and management issues that come along with those. It's exciting to see that collective vision of why and how we can kind of bridge cross silos based on focusing on that bigger question of where we fit. Being able to agree that, I love that point that Dave said about agreeing about why we're doing something is sometimes easier to work forward and work together on projects when we know what we're working towards instead of all the minute details of how we're going to get there. And that stuff comes along, but finding those commonalities are very important.
In 2022, we negotiated and concluded an agreement under the Heritage Conservation Act. Called the HCA, Heritage Conservation Act, Section 4 pilot project. So it took a really long time to get that even approved for piloting by the province. And that section allows for agreements to be made between BC and First Nations to expand the scope of sites that are recognized and protected to include, sacred sites, not just archaeological sites. It was huge. It was a huge first time in BC, one of the first times really worldwide, I think it's safe to say, where these kind of cultural landscape features are now commonly recognized in both our Stala policy and provincial legislation, and are given legal protection in the books and the laws of BC. And these features are very recognizable. Some are quite huge, and they're the transformation features that account for the entire Chiam range, the Thethloke or dog or sisters or daughters. In addition to the landmarks, we have cemetery areas, we have places of cultural practice, and we have cultural belongings that didn't otherwise fit the bill of what would be recognized and protected, but now are.
We just completed, after 8 years in negotiations and after 30 years on council, looking to protect a sacred site in the Sumac territory that had full support of the Sauk-Tumuk Stewardship Alliance. And a lot of the interactions within there with the provincial government and the push to protect the Lightning Rock site, the sacred area in the Sumac. And it was only 2 days ago we signed that. It isn't even public knowledge yet that the signature is there.
The project that I started, my relationship with the Sauk-Tumuk Stewardship Alliance, is called COVIST, which stands for Conservation of Species, Ecosystems and Indigenous Values in Sauk-Tumuk. And what we're working on there is trying to build conservation for species at risk and ecosystems and Indigenous values together. And trying to say, where in Sauk-Tumuk are there opportunities where we have lots of ecological values and lots of Indigenous values in a way that respects the data sovereignty and the sensitivity of the Indigenous data, which the communities hold and keep on their own, and we have a way through our analyses to bring that together without compromising any of that sensitivity. We're also working on protection of the Skagit Headwaters area, which is also known as the Donut Hole between Manning Park and Skagit Provincial Park.
So the province of BC has set aside some land for protection at the headwaters of the Skagit River, and we're now in the process. There's a planning process to decide what kind of protected status to give that land and how to manage that land, and it's Indigenous led. So working then the CSF, the Sauk-Tumuk Stewardship Alliance, is leading that work. There's a lot of First Nations overlap there, so bringing all of those First Nations together to talk about how they would like to see that land managed and how to protect it, and so being at the table representing the province to help with this planning process. It's very interesting and really great work.
The project I'm most proud of is working up at Scott Sackle, Chilliwack Lake, and doing water sampling there. And I think it's going to be really neat to see the data from old growth forest to new growth forest, and just to see how different as time goes on, the changes in the water of Scott Sackle, because that's a very important lake. Scott Sackle translates to sacred lake.
Working with anything to do with our culture or history, Shuohuiam, so our stories that relate to a lot of our origin stories, our history, and then all of the morals within those, and lessons that some people have called them. And then sharing that with community members, especially youth and elders, with various courses that we get to be involved in as guardians.
I think for me, I'm quite proud of the forest systems and well-being project that we're doing. We're looking at the whole forest management, not just looking at waterways or just air, but looking at it kind of collectively or holistically. I would also say that leadership's been clear that they want to see a lot of work being done with air quality and water quality, and this is a very tangible way in which we get to do so. So we've just wrapped up a lot of the testing for the last 3 years, and now we're going into an analysis phase. So the next year we're going to be going over the data and looking at trends and seeing where we're going to go from here.
There's real power in working together, and there's real power in working together on the land, and also in forums like this that we're meeting in today, where we do work together, but where we put the work aside and just be human beings together and enjoy the land or enjoy meeting together over a meal. I think we align so well in our shared vision, and we foster and strengthen those relationships. So in taking time to pause and celebrate the success and just ground ourselves in the importance of the work.
It's developed quite well. I think, I know a lot of people here, and then and even got to know people within government, whereas some of the ministers and others, actually, we still maintain a relationship and have each other's cell numbers and things, and and, you know, talk government to government. So it's gone well.
That relationship between those with inherent rights that are Indigenous and carry that right to decide what happens to the land and resources that are theirs, and also that relationship with BC and the legislative rights that they have to make decisions based on the Canadian Constitution. You know, the connections between them are going to, again, deepen and expand and improve when it comes to shared decision making. Decisions around the use of the landscape that are healthier for everybody and healthier in the context of the ecosystems themselves.
It was really neat to hear today the work that's been going on and the progress that's been made so far. And I can really see from here now that there's that solid platform built, foundation built, that is just going to be a huge growth and opportunity for communities.
We have emerging government priorities that come up that we need to respond to. We have concerns from Stolo communities that are brought through the STSA board of urgent issues that the forum needs to address that we may have not have anticipated a year ago, right? And so the benefit of our partnership is that because we have the governance structure, because we have the relationships and the trust, we can be nimble in responding to emerging things and collaboratively solve those issues as they come up.
I hope that we continue to see projects get past the finish line. The work will never end. There's always more, but moving more towards shared decision making. I think moving from a baseline gathering stage, baseline data gathering stage to a monitoring of conditions, tracking change over time as we progress towards understanding or being able to understand change on the land, and then making those corrective measures on the land in collaboration with each other, including changing legislation to allow for those changes to occur from a shared governance perspective.
Hopefully more into real action items as far as co-management, as far as shared decision making, and getting a deeper recognition from the government as to who we really are on Saukatamak, on our lands. Yeah.
I don't know, I'm kind of the guy, when I do a project, I go all out. I go all out and I give it all because it's young folks like you I'm working for. We're always told the seventh generation, we need to think about the seventh generation. But if you really look at it from a spiritual person's point of view, everybody's a seventh generation. And that's how I look at it at the CSF level. And the chiefs, a lot of the chiefs look at it like that too. We're only they're the spokesperson for their Indian reserves, but they're also the spokesperson for the spirit and the land.